Hello humans and welcome to the Let's Quest podcast, where we dive deep into the wonderful world of board games. Every episode I'll be sitting down with a fellow gamer to explore this awesome hobby of ours. Today is all about collaborative world building in tabletop role-playing games. So, make your character, roll for initiative, and let's quest. Okay, and so today on this episode, all about tabletop role-playing games, I've got, of course, Luke, who is the one person I would definitely turn to for any kind of RPG writing and world building, as you've actually done this professionally. So yeah, Luke, hey, how are you doing?
Hello, thank you very much for having me. Yeah, professionally in the loosest possible sense, in that I have been paid for it, which I guess means professional. But yes,
that is exactly that's
counts,
how I
right?
qualify anything to
sure.
do.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, very happy to come and chat about it. Yeah,
it's so cool to have you on, and thanks for following along with the podcast so far. It's been a fun little experiment for me, a fun time, and it's been basically an excuse for me to chat to people. So this is brilliant because actually we've played TTRPG before.
We have, yeah,
which was so fun. And my one occasion, because I'm a forever DM, much like you, it was my one occasion where I wasn't DMing, I was GMing. Sorry,
I know
you were running it.
Yeah, that was playing Mörkborg, a sort of Swedish death metal RPG.
So cool.
I can't remember a great deal about it. I remember your character did survive, but his hand didn't. That was the main thing, and that you had a sword that was very cantankerous. You know,
yeah, and it could talk to me, and I think it had a northern accent, or maybe a Cornish accent actually.
My accents are very fluid, I would say.
Yeah,
so
maybe
it really could be.
Yeah, just like mine.
Yeah, for sure.
It wasn't RP anyway. I definitely wasn't RP. But
No,
anyway, so generally we'll dive into just an intro to you before we get into the subject.
Sure
I have a tendency on these to just dive straight into the subject. But Martin, our sort of connected friend, is he talks about how you guys, you love TTRPGs. Oh, I should say TTRPGs, tabletop role-playing games.
That's it.
Before we say TTRPGs
tabletop
all the time.
Role-playing games. That's right. Yeah.
Yes. So we're talking Dungeons and Dragons. We're talking Mothership. What are other ones?
Well, the Alien RPG is a good one. Pathfinder. That's a sort of
there
common branch off Dungeons and Dragons.
Kind of like an original branch, right?
Yeah, it sort of goes back. It's Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 became
that's
Pathfinder.
it.
So they're sort of cousins, I guess.
Yeah, because I remember when I first got into the hobby, I got into D&D just as 4th edition had come out, and there was a lot. And the 4th edition was the one that was kind of like World of Warcraft was big.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of emphasis on like, here's your list of powers. And it was almost like a much more kind of strategic war game, like battling game.
There were lots of cards. They were at the same time, I think that came out. Wizards of the Coast were launching their like miniatures lines, their sort of collectible miniatures lines. So there was a sort of battle system that went with it. And I think you're right. It was very video gamey. And
it was.
I think that probably worked for certain people, but it actually had a lot less role playing element to it.
100%. And I didn't know that. Yeah.
I find it really interesting. You talked in one of your early episodes about gateway games, right? And I find it really interesting that so many people have a gateway TTRPG in Dungeons and Dragons, because it is a demonstrably complicated role-playing game to play, right? Like it's not straightforward at all. It's got all of these different dice, all of these different moves, and you have a whole range of skills from a very early level. So, I think that's a lot of people's but that's probably more...
I totally agree with this, because especially because now I have played a lot more and I've been in the hobby a lot more. I've seen a lot more that's around. I mean, we talked about Mörkborg. I mean, it's much more deadly, but it's also a lot simpler, and it's a lot more about do the fun thing, do whatever's on your mind kind of. But yeah, D&D is such a funny onboarding for people, because even the new edition, and I love 5th edition, I love the updates, but it's still, it's still a war game. It's still a lot more of there's a lot of the book that is about how the battling works, as opposed to like the proportions of the book for storytelling and narrative versus what spells you have and how you can cut people up.
This is very much, this is how I kind of came into the hobby back as a kind of teenager, essentially, is that I was, my dad is a historical war gamer, so lots and lots of historical war games and stuff like that. And then when I was younger, obviously getting into everything from like Warhammer being the obvious option, but actually I played like War Machine, I played lots of different miniatures games, and actually when you build up a collection of miniatures, sometimes you want to play something different with them, right? So actually me playing Dungeons and Dragons as a teenager was almost so I had another way of using all of these figures that I'd acquired.
Right, okay, that's cool.
And then like from there, I remember in school I played Dungeons and Dragons. It would have been 3.5 for those that don't know, right? So Dungeons and Dragons originally made by Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson in the 80s, and then there's been multiple editions since. So this would have been the mid 90s. So there was a third edition, and then for some reason there was a 3.5 before there was fourth. Don't understand. Yeah. Don't know why.
So weird.
So I've still got some of my 3.5 books. Which is kind of fun. But yeah, so I played some of that at school. I also played some, there was a game called Werewolf the Wild West, which was part of the Vampire the Masquerade extended universe, right?
Sure,
so
okay.
It was just werewolves in the Wild West. Did not age well, I would say.
Okay.
The book now has some questionable politics in it. So from there I played a lot more games sort of throughout school. And then when I went to university, it took a bit of a backseat generally. And then I didn't do it for years and years and years. And then about 7 or 8 years ago, a friend at work sort of started a D&D group, and I kind of joined in. Cool. And then she left the job and there was no one else to DM. So I kind of became a DM then. This would have been this would have been 2017 or 18. And then...
and you never went back.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's been a funny old journey, but definitely coming from that like more wargaming miniature side of things into sort of something like TTRPGs. It's been good fun. And then the pandemic was like the height of so many of these things, right? So many people playing online and on Roll20 and Shard, Tabletop, and other things. That made it really fun. So, and that's also when I had a bit more time from working from home that I was able to start writing and publishing some of my own things. So a couple like adventures here or there, or a couple full games and bits and pieces. So yeah, it was good fun.
I love that. Okay, let's get into that in a second. But I'll just round off the point that I was going to make earlier, because I realized that I didn't close that loop. When I got into the hobby and it was 4th edition, this is just linking back to Pathfinder, because I remember Pathfinder there was this massive thing online about, but D&D's ruined because 4th edition's come out. It's just for, it's for the casuals now, and it's for World of Warcraft players, for PC gamers or whatever. And obviously I was really excited about it. I was like, this is cool. I've still got my original minis up there from my campaign. But suddenly it was my sort of this taste of like, Pathfinder was for the purists of D&D, because it held true to like the more original D&D rules, and then they sort of, the paths separated. But yeah, it's so funny that there was these, even now there are people get so into this groove of like, this is my game, and it's better than everything, and they take a lot of ownership over the game, I think, which is interesting, because so many of these systems, and obviously D&D in particular, got into a lot of controversy a couple of years ago when they tried to lock everything down a bit more in terms of creativity and what people were allowed to do online with it. But one of the things that I think that makes these systems so good, and I don't want to get into the main topic yet, but it is getting close to it, but is that you can create so much for them. You can go online, and Mothership is probably one of the best systems I've seen for this. You can literally just get these like little magazines. I'm pointing at them like you can see them, but you get these little books, and people just publish these. Like, you can get the PDF, you can get them printed wherever you want, from any printers you want. It's just so open, and it's such a playground of ideas that I just, and you've said even, right, you in COVID were thinking you wanted an extra creative outlet, and then you just wrote some stuff. And did you write for a system, or did you write your own system or anything like that?
It's a good question. So what I've done, if you're interested, you can check out my stuff on itch.io. That's like a good platform for lots of different independent TTRPGs mainly. So I'm Rookandrole pretty much everywhere on there. So I've done a few different things. So I started off writing Dungeons and Dragons, writing on Dungeons & Dragons has a dedicated marketplace called the DM's Guild, where you can write things within the intellectual property of Dungeons & Dragons. Right. So I've got a couple of bits and pieces on there. I've got an adventure called The Titan Attacks, which is a kind of solo one-player RPG Dungeons & Dragons scenario where you basically fight your way through a giant robot, which is kind of fun.
Yes, we were going to play that, but we never got around to play that.
We can give it a go for sure.
I've still got it. I've got the PDF up here, and it looks so
I'm really proud of
sick.
That one. Yeah, no, I commissioned art from my friend Denzel DeMila. He's an artist that's worked on lots of great animation shows and stuff like that. So he's a storyboard artist predominantly, but he's done some really great stuff. So that was a lot of fun to put together. And it really kind of shows that you can kind of put out a kind of high quality product without it costing too much money.
Sure.
It still makes me a little bit of money back every now and again, which is quite nice. But I've also published some of my own entire games, but like using essentially other people's game engines, right? And yes, one of the games that I wrote was using a system called Wretched and Alone, which is a solo journaling game system. It's based on Chris Bazzette's The Wretched, which is a sort of have you ever played Dread at all?
I have, yeah.
So,
Dread's great.
Use the same mechanic as Dread, where, if you don't know, Dread uses a legally distinct tumbling blocks tower, which definitely is not Jenga, to basically add a lot of tension as you're playing. So if you want your character to do something, you pull a block out, right? And as the game goes on, it becomes more and more likely that you might have it all fall down, and then you die, presumably. It's really bad if everyone falls down. So Wretched and Alone games use a similar sort of premise whereby you're using a pack of cards to determine different prompts, and I guess this is how it brings us to the sort of theme of this particular episode. It's about world building, it's about creation. So in my game Silent Night, Wretched Night, you play, obviously, Father Christmas, trying to avoid Dracula. So as you go through, you're trying to deliver all your presents. It's Christmas Eve, but you're being pursued by Dracula and his eternal minions, because obviously it makes sense, you know, that Dracula and Saint Nick would have beef. So that's one of my really fun ones. I like that one, bringing that one every now and again.
I love that. I haven't heard of that system. That sounds pretty cool. I love a solo journaling game, which, you know what, that sentence out loud doesn't sound very cool, but it is actually a really fun kind of practice to do.
And if you're a forever GM, it might be the only opportunity you get to play. Right?
Sure.
You just have to play with yourself. But actually, Chris Bazette has done, like, they've done so many good versions of this game. So the original Wretched is about being a lone space person hunted on a spaceship by an alien, essentially.
I'll have to check it out.
They've done a Discovery of Witches, which is where you're trying to stop being burnt as a witch. You know, it's really good. It's a really good sort of prompt for different things. So yeah.
Okay, so we've chatted about a couple of different ones, but have you got any kind of favourite systems, either to play in or to write for or to GM, basically?
Yeah, well, so recently I was really lucky because I got the opportunity to write for Warhammer Age of Sigmar Soulbound by Cubicle 7, which is the kind of official TTRPG for the Warhammer Age of Sigmar setting, which is a sort of high fantasy, very gonzo epic version of Warhammer. So I was able to write for the Karngrad Adventures book, which is essentially kind of like, Karngrad is supposed to be a big chaos city, so it's all bandits and reavers and all sorts of horrible things. So I was able to write for that, which was a lot of fun. So I wrote a lot of monsters and bits and pieces for that, which was great.
That's cool. So I must say that I thought that I knew chaos was a thing in 40k.
Yeah.
I don't know much about the kind of fantasy Warhammer world. I didn't realise that chaos was in that too, but that makes a lot of sense that it is
almost exactly the same. It's almost the same. A lot of the same.
But it's not called the Warp.
Monsters.
Is it called not the Warp instead?
No, it's not called the Warp. It's just magic. I mean, I think in Age of Sigmar, they can just say it's the realm of magic or the realm of chaos, you know, because people don't feel that attached to it. But the thing about the soulbound system, which is really, really cool, I'm gonna throw down some kind of controversial D&D takes, right?
Whoa, so okay, do it.
I think that Dungeons and Dragons, once you get Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, once you get higher than like level 12, it just stops being fun.
I know what you're going to say, and I already agree. Yeah, totally agree. I don't know if it stops being fun. Certainly for a certain type of person, I'm sure it's very fun.
Yeah, I can tell you spreadsheets.
I tell you, it's really hard to GM.
I
remember doing a one-shot where I basically was like, oh, everyone, let's do Paragon level. Let's everyone be level 15. And they're basically gods. And they can just defeat any problem. So the stakes kind of evaporate because everyone's got these amazing abilities.
Except it's not fun. That's my contention, right? So I've had a very lucky experience of a couple of years ago. I ran a campaign from level 1 to level 20, right? So we over years, it was an amazing campaign. Wow. It was a lot of fun. Between levels 13 and 20 is so hard because everyone's got so many abilities. Everyone forgets half their abilities every turn. And also they can change the fabric of the universe, right? So the thing about Age of Sigmar Soulbound, which is really cool, is that your players, your characters start off as these divinely imbued characters. They are superheroes, right? So in level 1, you have moves that can kill hundreds of units in level 1. It's like no problem, right?
And that's the sort of scale is balanced to that.
But also, it feels a lot easier to play, right? It's a lot more fun. Also, Soulbound has this amazing battle mechanic, which is called metal, which means that basically every turn you get a resource called metal, which you can use to either have another attack or superpower one of your existing attacks in different ways, right? Which means that you don't have the situation where you spend your entire turn waiting for your go, and then you roll a 2, and then you have to wait for everyone else to do their go again. You know, it's such a simple mechanic, but Soulbound is great fun if you want the epic fantasy stuff. If you're after like more world building stuff, I can get some suggestions that way as well. But what TTRPGs have you been playing recently then?
I was going to say some of my favourites, but what have I been playing recently? I haven't been playing many TTRPGs recently, unfortunately, but other than the solo ones.
I've got loads of those.
Loads of those. I tell you what, I have been, speaking of Morkborg, I've been like reading a bunch. I've been listening to Mystery Quest quite a lot, and Mystery Quest has done Morkborg, and it's done all different variants of it, and then like the cyborg on there, which looks really cool, which is like, you know, the cyberpunk sort of style. And then they did Starborg, which is Star Wars but in Morkborg.
Interesting. Okay.
And he Tom, the guy who sort of runs it, he had basically done like, he'd modified an old Star Wars RPG quest and then put it into this new into this system. And, you know, Morkborg and Starborg through that is a pretty simple system, but it's just really fun and fast. And it doesn't mind giving you, on one hand, quite a lot of power. Like in this, you kind of get these like save the universe abilities, and you get these like, you know, if you listen to this episode of Mystery Quest, they're doing some big bombastic stuff. But at the same time, they can all die. You get the sense that everything's on a knife's edge, right? And that's what Morkborg's all about.
So it's more like Rogue One than A New Hope.
Yes, certainly. And it's much more... the reason I'm so attracted to it is because I played a lot. The TTRPG that I've played the most of is the Star Wars role-playing game, like Edge of the Empire and all that. I've spoken about it before on this, but particularly with Marty on the Dice episode, all about that. And it's similar to what you were saying about Soulbound, or Warhammer Age of Sigmar, Soulbound, core book. No. Similar to that, where you've got this system that lets you effectively fail forwards or gives you an extra boon. One thing I don't know if I mentioned about that Star Wars RPG is it has this destiny point system, this fate system, where effectively, to simulate the fact that you are heroes in a story and you're against villains in the story, you get these force points, these destiny points, and they represent you know, at the beginning of a session, you roll up for every player at the table plus the GM, which is the Galaxy Master. I should,
of course,
of course. And yeah, you roll up and you effectively get, you know, let's say there's 5 or 6 destiny points, and there's dark side points and light side points. Mm-hmm. And all the players at the table, you know, the players can spend light side points. But guess what? When you spend one, the token flips over and becomes a dark side point.
I like that. Okay.
And it's the players can spend them, and the idea is that you're not supposed to kind of get too chatty at the table about it. You're supposed to say, I really want to make this. It's like almost like a slightly selfish decision to do it, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not kind of getting into the meta game of, guys, what do you think on balance? Do you think I should use this? You know, it's more like in the moment, I you know, whatever. And you can kind of spend it on everything from mechanical stuff of, I'd like to upgrade my green dice to a yellow dice, please, and kind of make my attacks better or whatever. Or you can spend it on, you know, me as the GM, I might have just locked the doors. I've turned a dark side point and went, okay, the door slams shut. Gas starts to come in from all around you. And then a player might go, turn like 2 light side points. I might make them do 2 at once to pull a respirator out of their bag that they packed there earlier. And it's okay, cool. You can get away with that, but you know, the more you do that, the more dark side points I get that I can then mess with the situation.
That's a really fun mechanic.
Yeah, and that's it, and that's the kind of stuff. Yeah, but yeah, okay, we should probably move on into the main subject.
Sorry, yes.
But I have seen the show notes. Yeah, we can. I have seen in the show notes that you've written about Silver Bayonet.
Oh, yes,
and Marty had said about that too, and I have to hear about this.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so myself and Marty and a couple of the friends are playing through a game called Silver Bayonet. It's a war game, but actually it's sort of... the reason I like it is that it very much straddles the line between role-playing game and war game. Okay, so in Silver Bayonet, it's set during the Napoleonic Wars, except it's Napoleonic Gothic horror. Like that's the sales pitch. So you can control a group of British or French or Spanish, Italian, any sort of party that happened to be getting involved in the Napoleonic War, except your small groups going on hunts essentially to find various different monsters and creatures and bits and pieces. So obviously I've modelled up a little sharp unit, so I've got a little 95th rifles with
Is this from the collection that you had as a kid?
No, some of these are new.
These are new.
Doesn't matter. But the thing about Silver Bayonet that is so much fun, really, from a modelling perspective, is that you can get involved with it really quickly and really cheaply. So you don't have to go out and buy 60 Prussian reserves. You know, you can buy a single sprue of historical French miniatures for like £5 off eBay, and and that's your warband. That's it. You can get started straight away, right? And you could go on missions. And I've made my little 95th rifles with Major Richard Sharp, Vampire Hunter, which has been great. And yeah, we're going through a bit of a scenario, a campaign at the moment, whereby we're kind of playing out the events of Dracula, but with Sharp. So it's really good fun.
I love it. So are you playing like it is literally right on the boundary between a role playing game and a war game? So are you GMing it? Are you playing the bad guys?
No,
and
I'm
then
playing
if they
the French.
win or they lose, okay, you're playing the French.
Yeah.
So the bad guys.
So Marty, the way it basically works is that Marty is playing Richard Sharp and Sergeant Major Harper. I'm playing a group of French knights which is a cross between some French miniatures and some kind of Agincourt French miniatures. So it's all a real mess.
Okay.
But then in the midst of this, you have essentially like NPCs in the middle of the game, right? So for instance, the scenario might be, let's say the last adventure we played is you're in you're going through the kennels of Dracula's castle to try and find the secret entrance on the way in, right? And obviously it's been surrounded by these like undying dog monsters, a couple werewolves. So the French and the British are trying to fight each other, and also
find the
big
entrance.
dog monsters that
and the
might
big dog
be
monsters
attacking as well. So it's a lot of fun.
That is
but
so cool.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
And then is there like a different scenarios? Does it path off if the French win versus the? Or
there's so many different ways you can do it. So actually, there's a number of different books. Cool. It's by a guy called Joseph McCullough. He's created a whole range of different war games. For Silver Bayonet, there's an Italian campaign. There is a Carpathian campaign, Egyptian campaign. There's one recently that's came out, which is called The Bones of Albion, which is all about going around Britain. And
amazing.
You might encounter like Viking zombies or Roman skeletons and stuff like that along the way. So it's really good fun. So that's been great.
Cool. Well, we'll definitely have to play a game at some point. I really want to see how this works.
The thing is, Andy, I've got from Kickstarters. You know when everyone went through a phase when they bought loads of Kickstarters and.
Phase.
Yeah, your phase might have continued longer than mine. So I got loads of amazing scenery from Dungeons and Lasers, which is from Archon Studios. So I've got like interior castles and stuff like that. And
love it.
Yeah, so we could figure something out for sure.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
That sounds fun.
So, main topic of today is collaborative world building in tabletop role-playing games, TTRPGs. I was going to try and jazz up that title, but I couldn't think of anything better to describe what we're talking about. But first off, I think it's best if we describe like what do we mean by world building, and for people who might not be into role-playing games as much, like what is world building, and then we'll go down the path of what it means to make it collaborative. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think the thing is, we mentioned earlier, a lot of role-playing gamers, their first experience will be with Dungeons and Dragons or something like that, and Dungeons and Dragons is very much the world building sort of by default is the remit of the dungeon master, right?
Sure.
And other players, they are kind of allowed to create within the space, but with the dungeon master acting almost as like a fallback, right? So what we're talking about is maybe expanding it out a little bit further afield and actually bringing players in on the world building process as well. I think there are some really popular, really successful role-playing games, far more successful than I will ever be, role-playing game players out there, that it very much feels like the players are playing in the world of the DM or GM, right? And that's fine, but I think there's opportunity to actually collaborative world build with your entire table, right? With everyone around the table has ideas about things that they want to bring into it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be big things. It could be quite minor things. But there are some things you might have to consider. If you're interested in doing something like this, and if you're playing RPGs, then you may well be.
Yeah.
But there's some things that you might have to keep in mind when you do it.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like my first taste of world building was when I was first doing D&D, and you're right, it felt like it was fully on me to build this sort of story and this adventure, and then I would kind of come up with everyone's names, and I honestly, it felt like a second job. Like I would pore over like everyone's names that are in there and what they're all doing, what the big bad guy's doing, and so that I couldn't get caught out. I knew every detail. If that guy, his name's Henry and he hates dogs, and I just know everything. But obviously, that became more and more rigid almost, and I felt like there was this point where I realized that I don't know if I'd say railroading, but I was coming away from sessions thinking, they only explored this bit of the map, and that in that fog of war that they never got to was all this wonderful stuff that I just spent ages building. And the thing that really tipped it for me was Sly Flourish is this like quite famous writer of Dungeon Master, and he wrote this book called The Lazy Dungeon Master, or The Lazy Dungeon Master's Guide. And it really opened up this idea of like a much more ad hoc, much more kind of on the fly improv version of just flat out playing a role-playing game. And then once I got into that, and I sort of just trusted myself and the players at the table to like, we're going to figure it out. We've all seen the same shows, or maybe we've seen different shows, and that's even better. But we've all read stories. We all know what the vibe is, and the players were more experienced, so they could kind of play along. And then more and more, I was finding that not only was it what gear and what equipment they had and what their backstory was or whatever, it was also what magic was in this world and what this spell looks like. It started spreading into building out the whole world.
Definitely.
Which made it much easier for me as a DM, because I suddenly was spending all of my time thinking about fun encounters to make for them.
Yeah.
And like interesting hooks, and that made for a much more fun experience for everyone at the table. Yeah.
And there's so many RPGs that do this better than Dungeons and Dragons. So it's a matter of sort of stealing things from other places and using it in whatever system it is that you want to use. So the campaign that I had, that was the 1 to 20 campaign, it was a pirate campaign. Most weeks they went to a different island, right? So like every single week I'm going to have to come up with a new island, a new people, a new culture.
Island of the week,
so, yeah, Island of the week, very much, it's very episodic, which it should be, because that's kind of the nature of these things. So what we would do is...
a level 20 pirate, I can't really...
well, I'll tell you, that was... So it started off... Obviously, I'm a big fan of my JRPGs as well, Japanese role-playing games, for video games in particular. So it started off with... pirates, they're managing their pirate ship, they're going through the straits. First of all, they're kind of fighting back other pirates and bits and pieces, right the way through to, obviously, the inevitable conclusion is sailing into heaven to kill God, right? Like that's,
of course.
That's where all these games end up going, right?
Well, it has to, though, because of the exact problem we're talking about, 20, because they are gods. Yeah.
But even then, when a good way of bringing your players on board, actually, when it comes to like new locations and new areas, new villages, for instance, you can you can also separate, like the players will be able to separate what they know from what their characters should know, right? So even if these characters arrive in a town, they've never seen it before, you can still ask them questions to help build up the image of it. So what I would always say is 3 things, right? So the first one is, what is a fact that is true about this place? Second one, what is a thing that people think is true, but they're not sure? Third one, what is a thing which is false that lots of people think is true?
Oh, I like those. They're good.
Just those 3. And then and from there, you can build up so much. You could be like, oh, well, people think the gurgling in the sewers is goblins, but actually it's not, it's something else, right? And then that can be an area, a way of exploring that place, but also making it a bit more real and interesting in the minds of your players. And the other option I would always do is like food and drink. Like food and drink is such an artifact of culture, right? So like if you go to a town, like what is their delicacy? What do they eat, right? Because that can tell you a lot about what sort of place it is. If it's like a mountainside, are they, is it especially peculiar longhorn sheep that roam around the mountains or something like that? And already, even if you never ever bring up the weird longhorn sheep again, all of your players have got a better sense of what it is. And it's everyone that comes up with that, not just the DM saying, you've arrived at the village of Paraxis, it's a noble fishing village, anything like that, which is fine in itself, but also it's kind of a bit more fun to bring people in, and it gets people involved without it having a significant impact, unless you want it to. Because then maybe there's some longhorn goat rustlers that need putting down.
For sure. Yeah, and all it takes, because that's one of the things I've definitely learned when in sort of playing TTRPGs and all that, is that like it doesn't really matter if you're a bit tropey or if you're doing these big obvious things, because frankly it's more fun at the table anyway. And you're right, like in a lot of cases less is more. You can tell a lot. I mean, that food and drink one's brilliant, and actually it reminds me of I've been playing Metaphor Refantasia, like a video game. It's from the people that made Persona and all those games. But yeah, and in that, just a fun little point, but it hadn't really struck me until you said that, but basically whenever you go to one of the new towns in it, they've got these very different flavors each one, and they're quite tropey, they're quite obvious. But one of the things is, one of your crew loves food and she always wants to know what the delicacy is. But actually it sets the whole scene for what these people are like, right? If they like this really briny fish dish that your characters, thinks is disgusting or whatever, but that's what they're all eating and they all love it. And that really tells you a lot about them versus the other place that loves like this very like classy food that's very hard to get, and they don't actually get it themselves, they make other people get it. And that tells you so much about the society and about who you're dealing with and everything. Yeah, really, and what they might smell like or what they might look like. Well, they're eating all that, or oily fish all the time. I bet they're sweating it.
But then already the characters, your players and you are thinking, you now know what this place looks like, what it smells like. You have that sort of taste of it in the air. I would say as well, if all of this, if you're a relatively new GM and all of this sounds like too much like hardcore improv, one thing I think is really important is it's completely fine for you as the GM to pause and say, okay, let me have a think about this. Let's have a toilet break.
Yeah, sure.
Give me 10 minutes to write down the briny fish monster that is ravaging this town and affecting their supply.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to just come up with this stuff on the fly. And I think I think
for
things
sure.
like, the real pros like Critical Role make it look really easy to do that sort of stuff. But actually there's no requirement to do that when you're you can get involved in different ways.
Yeah, I can't really stress enough how, like, when I was chatting before about, I used to play and I used to study loads and do all this, and then I read that book and it made it. I don't want to give across like I was some expert. I in no way was. I honestly offloaded a bunch of, like, it made it much easier for me to lean in more to this sort of creative. And we were painting in big, colourful brushes of like tropiness of like, very sort of sci-fi, Star Wars adjacent, or Star Trek, or Lord of the Rings adjacent, or D&D. It's all like,
that's it. Yeah,
we weren't coming up with some storybook that we were writing with a completely new IP that was perfect. It didn't need to be that. It needed to be a fun romp that me and my friends were going on, and that's what's sort of paramount. But yeah, I think one thing that came to mind when we sort of picked out this collaborative world building chat was this really cool game. I've got it here, so I've got props, which listeners won't be able to see, but there's this game called Icarus. And this is a board game, role-playing game. Well, I'll read you. It says, Icarus is a collaborative storytelling game about the collapse of a great civilization. So this whole game, with cards and dice and whatever, is all about creating, you at the table, create a world. Like, you in the game, you build this world out and then it crumbles. And you quite literally make this monument in the center of the table. I won't get it all out, but we've got all these lovely dice and they stack on top of each other and create this. They're supposed to represent this like monument that's built within your city. And then you're drawing cards the whole time. I have quite literally got in here card notes upon card notes that, honestly, every time I've played, we've got to the end of it and went, we should write a book about this.
Yeah.
We should. I want to live in this world. I made a world about like this like magic sci-fi civilization that rides on the back of this intergalactic space like mutant turtle thing, lifted from a bit of Discord, a bit of like stuff. It was great. Effectively, it's about building this city up, and then all the world around it. And each of you, you're not like building out a character with powers or whatever, but you're playing people within that society who are on different sides of it. So you might be part of a union that's trying to get the people together, or you might be in the high class, the aristocratic people who are trying to keep and hoard all the resources themselves. Whatever your kind of vibe of the story is. And the game has all these cards that you're dealing out that kind of are these very strong prompts to push you in the direction to create. So it's not like you're just sitting down and it's all just coming from you, but you're kind of just getting this mixture of stuff. I played it with Laura, my wife, and she wasn't really into RPGs at the time when we played this. And I must say, this game is one of the things that gave her this spark of like, that was really fun. We just sat around and told a story together about this civilization rising up and then falling back down again. It was great.
Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. I love that idea, and I think it's the prompts that's really important. I mean, I think that's sort of the thing. Is like, if a game gives you the tools, and it can be really simple prompts, right?
Yeah.
Or it can be something really complex or something that really hooks you in. I think that's a really fun. Building a whole game around that is fantastic, because then you could obviously take that Icarus world that you've created and then use it in a different system, right?
Well, that is exactly what I was going to say. It's like you could basically... So there's this thing, I should say, that within role-playing games called a session zero, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We've all done them. And a session zero is the idea that you get together with the people that you're going to play a campaign with or a bigger story with, and you all sit down and go, right, I'm this person, and you talk about what character you'll be. You effectively make your characters and maybe give them some interconnected kind of ideas, and either the GM will tell you about the world, or you might come up with the world together, like we're saying. And I always think that this would make the perfect session zero. Maybe like a sub-zero, like one below, and then you do -1, then you do session zero to make your characters.
I love that.
It's like the perfect little game of let's make a fun world that we can inhabit, you know?
Mm-hmm. That's really fun. I like the sound.
I'm trying to think of, like, just so I can show one of these cards off. The cards like run through 3 acts of the game, and you can imagine they get progressively worse and worse as people start falling from the tower. And then you get the bitter end card. And that is, you know, what happens afterwards. But like, just to give you an example of like what might come out in this game is, you know, you start with things like the safety, a strength or a weakness of the safety of everyone. The people of Icarus feel safer within the city than anywhere else. Why is this? Or the weakness. The people of Icarus all share a common fear. What is it, and where did it come from? And these are you as the player. When you draw the card, you get to write that part of the story about it. Then the next person plays another one.
Amazing.
And then we start falling down and tumbling until we get to things like the final hours. The physical land Icarus sits on has begun to erode and change beneath it, leaving parts of the city inaccessible to one another. What important area is now completely isolated, and what ramification does that have on the rest of the city? So yeah, like, really fun way to start off.
I love that for sure. Yeah, because then you could do it you could turn it into a survival horror type thing. You could do it into even a fantasy exploration type thing. No, great idea.
And you could almost play that game and then pick a point with your players and say, right, you know how the city, where the city's going. We're in Act 1.
Yeah.
So
I like
how do we get through the rest of it?
That's great.
Anyway, sorry to go on about that game.
No, that sounds fantastic.
we'll have to play, Luke.
That sounds great. And then do a follow-up game. Oh, that could be it. You could do it, and then you could have different people do follow-up games on different systems within the same city that's falling down.
Oh man, that's amazing. Cool. I like that. Okay, so what we got on a list at the moment to play? We've got Silver Bayonets.
Yeah,
we've got Icarus
for sure,
Morkborg and Starborg and Cyborg. All right, that's easy.
You can do that in a year
or 2. So yes, I'd love to hear your ideas on collaborative world building. So us coming together as a table to do it. Would you say to do it in the moment or beforehand or a mix?
So I think mostly it's in the moment for me. And the first time I ever did this when I kind of picked up that work-based D&D game is that I really like a boss fight that has interesting mechanics and stuff. I like a Metal Gear Solid boss fight. So, you know, for those that aren't familiar, Metal Gear Solid boss fights will have weird things which are like, there's a door over here, and if you shoot it, then it makes this thing happen. Or there'll be something that you can use to make the fight easier or harder for you in different ways, right? So I remember my players went into a room, and this is a mechanic I stole from a game called Fate Accelerated, I think it's called, where if you walk into a combat scenario, every player gets to decide, including the DM or GM, every player gets to decide a sort of aspect within that room, right? So let's say you're in a forgotten temple, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone around the room will say, oh, well, there's some crumbling columns over there in the corner. There's a sacrificial pit in the middle. There's a crack in the wall over there. There's vines that are leaking down from the ceiling.
That's
or
cool.
Whatever it is. And then the way I would play it in D&D is anyone can use any one of those aspects to get an advantage on a single roll, including the GM or including the boss of whatever it is that you're fighting, right?
Okay, cool.
And if everyone throws out 2 of them, you have this room, which might have only started as like a blank 16 square room on your piece of paper, right? Which is now
with like
full
a
of
theme.
stuff. that people can play with and use. And that is kind of collaborative world building in a sense, because you're kind of working together to make the scenario more interesting for everyone. So it isn't just you all like rolling to hit, and you get people thinking, oh, I'm going to use that in an unusual way, or I'm going to sort of figure out. And that's a very easy way of doing it.
And like we're saying, all that pressure is taken off of the GM, right?
Sure.
Like I said, I was spending a lot of my time putting it into making up fun, creative encounters for people. But in this way, I wouldn't even need to necessarily do that.
Like, why did none of my players hit the sand timer, which would have triggered the acid traps in the walls? How did they know? Yeah. Well, they probably didn't know because you just said there was a sand timer in the wall.
Yeah, sure.
And
the thing is, you could still place in little bits, but you're right, you'd really flesh out the whole kind of world. That reminds me of Blades in the Dark is a system. I haven't actually ever played it. I've watched a lot of it.
Add it to the list.
And I've got the rule book and the sci-fi rule book. But that has a system, right, where because it's about heisting, it's about a group of criminals all going on a heist. It employs the same thing that Ocean's 11 might, which is that rather than watching the entire scene where you sit and talk about what you're going to do, and as we know, anyone who's played any of these games know that you can talk and plan as much as you want, but then a dice roll is going to come along and ruin all those plans. And if the players are all sat there talking about all their plans in front of you as the GM, you can kind of be a bit like, well, I kind of have to bend what's happening to what they're talking about, because otherwise I'm going to disappoint them when I tell them that, sorry, the lava pit's actually way too big for you to pole vault over or whatever. But then Blaze in the Dark does it in a way that you basically just start with the action, and then everyone around the table, whenever they want, can kind of spend a resource to say, I'm having a flashback. I spoke to the bellhop before I got here, and I've actually kidnapped his family, or however evil you want to be, or I got him drunk last night and I stole this key card, and now I can get into the facility. Like you can, and that again is building out the world and building out what's in these rooms and what's in these spaces, and who your friends are and everything. And if you've ever seen a session 0 of that being played, they have this really great setup. The lore and the deeper world, the sort of expanded view, is this city called Duskfall, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And, you know, where ghosts are real and ghosts sort of actually come out, and there's a whole police service all based around them. You know, they've already asked the questions, like we said earlier, like, what's this thing that people think isn't real? What is? And then, so they have this amazing world built for you, but within it, you kind of seed who you are within that world, what factions you like, what ones you don't. So you know, when we're talking about the scale of world building, I think that's kind of one on there where the high level is built out for you, but then you can get really close in. You can start painting in who these people are or whatever, which is cool.
It's a really great game. It reminds me that on the heist theme, there's a really great game called Time Heist by a company called Roll Flip Draw, which is that same sort of principle. Is you are stealing a time machine, and you know you're going to steal it because along the way you can help yourself out, right? So you play through this whole scenario twice. So the first time is you come to a corner and you think, oh, I need a a telescope to look around this corner, and you say,
love it.
Okay, well, I look in this locker and there's a telescope there, right? And then you on a chart you draw that you found a telescope there. So then when you get to the end, you find the time machine. The next bit is you having to go back in time to add the telescope there so that your character could find
it.
Right?
That's so cool. But
and and this is one that I think you really need to play it in person, because you have this massive piece of paper where you're literally like Back to the Future Part 2. You're drawing these timelines, and
cool.
if you bump into yourself, or if you don't manage to get the item there, it makes a time distortion, which can cause big problems along the way. But
that's so fun.
It's a really cool idea. Yeah.
Very cool. Love it.
It's good. It's a good idea. Really good idea.
Okay, before we wrap this up, anything else that we want to talk about?
I think it's worth. It's very, very quickly. It's worth saying instances where you wouldn't want to do this, right?
Yes.
So instances where you wouldn't want to do collaborative world building, and there are kind of a couple different instances. One is, I think, it requires your entire table, for want of a better term, to be very much on the same page of the type of story that you're looking to create. So the example of this that I would give is, if you were playing Curse of Strahd, which is, for those that don't know, Curse of Strahd is a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, which is very much a gothic horror kind of Transylvania, vampires, ghosties, stuff like that. If you were playing that game and you were coming up with reasons why a town was troubled, and you'd say, oh, well, it's because a Mind Flayer ship crashed, right? As a player, might be like, that's cool. I'm up for that. That sounds great. But other people around the table might think, oh, I thought this was gothic horror. Why are we bringing the aliens into it, right? So you have to be considerate of that. The other thing I think is really important, you've mentioned Star Wars a couple of times. I think Star Wars is an interesting one because if you've got a group of people that are playing a Star Wars RPG, they presumably all like the Star Wars universe, right? And the reason for them being there is that they want to experience his story within the Star Wars universe. And that comes with a set of rules, you know, some more granular than others, right? So if we were playing on Tatooine and I said, oh, well, did you know there's a secret Gungan colony on Tatooine? You might be like, well, that's impossible.
Is there?
Right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I know Tatooine.
Exactly.
I've seen it enough times. Twin
so
suns.
I think there's Gungans are very dry, right?
Yeah.
So I think those are kind of instances where you have to make sure that everyone at the table is comfortable with each other and the story they're telling and the tone that they're telling it. I think
it requires that buy-in, buy-in from everyone at the table. Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's some really interesting points there about the idea of world building and how I think we both agree that you can still do world building collaboratively, even within an established IP or within a kind of like. And I know what we're saying here. You know, yes, there are rules. You need to stay within the same vibe of it. And yeah, I might even have a printed book that I've bought that tells me all about exactly what's happened in this world. But if you're open to it at the table, by all means, it's, you know, you can definitely add things and add places, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like we're saying, world building is definitely you can do it on a top level of, we're making an entire political system and we're making how all the castles look and we're making the whole history of these isles, you know, we're making a new Westeros. Or you can go, right, it's Star Wars, but this wrinkle and we're on this uncharted planet all of a sudden, you know. To me, all of that is within it. I think, the only thing I'd say about when not to do it, there is already so much, particularly with D&D. That's why I think we're both in agreement that D&D probably shouldn't be your first D&D. There's probably your first. It will be, but it probably shouldn't be, right? Or at the very least, what I would say is, in my experience, my best times have been to onboard people into the world is to hit the ground running and have effectively a pre-generated characters that I can throw out and be like, here are the tropes. You want to be a Wookiee, you can be a big strong Wookiee. You want to be a wizard, you're a glass cannon wizard, whatever. And they get it immediately. They don't have to worry too much about creating a character. They don't have to worry about that. And that there is just this fun adventure happening around them. And I go, what do you want to do? And they just answer. And I'm taking care, as the GM, I'm taking care of a lot of the sort of spinning plate part. And they don't have to worry too much about, other than the fact that, it says I've got rope in my bag. What do I do with it? Well, what would you do with rope? You know, that's it. And then I just tell them what they've got to roll. But then if you were to sit down at a table with people who have not played a role-playing game and went, right, so this is the world of Alethea. What do you think all of our characters believe about religion? You know, you are going to immediately... people are not going to be on board.
Yeah, to use a video game analogy, right? The opening 30 minutes of Final Fantasy 13 are like the most confounding nonsense. Because they're like, the Fal'Cy are attacking. Oh, well, you're a Lassie. And you're like, and I'm already lost. And like, 12 hours in, it really starts to make sense, and it gets quite good.
Then it really hits.
But it's quite an investment.
I bounced off of it, so that's definitely you've got to be really open to I want a whole new world to absorb into.
For sure.
One thing before we wrap up about collaborative world building, I think probably the best example I've ever heard of this is Push the Roll with Ross Bryan. It's a newish Call of Cthulhu TTRPG actual play podcast. But the thing that's so unique about it is everyone, including the GM, has no idea what each episode is going to be about. So all the guests come on and he introduces everyone, and they effectively pull out of a bag the name of the episode, which has been submitted by their Patreons or whatever, and they've got some characters they can grab, but then they give them a completely new... They're purely just stat blocks, basically, of like, okay, I want a strong person. Okay, take this one. And that's what's seeded, and everything else they just make up on the fly. And Ross Bryan, which I don't know if people know him, but he is on... I found him on Dropout TV, which is, and he's an amazing improv artist. He's one of these guys that you just watch and he just makes everything... He makes it look so easy, but he clearly has worked very hard to earn this skill. And he does like a improv Shakespeare company where he like can effectively just make up a Shakespeare play that you would think legitimately is Shakespeare. It's incredible. Highly recommend watching. Anyway, so he just makes up these stories, and so the plot, the world, and the characters and all of what's going on with them is all made up on the fly, and it is wild to watch it, and how coherent it all is. Like, it's not a mess. But again, all the people that are playing are improv or actors. They all know what they're doing, and they are really like flexing their muscles here. It's amazing to watch. Definitely give it a go.
That sounds fun.
Have you got any kind of content that kind of fits into that world that you?
I think that
like?
if you've listened to this or watched this, hello, and you're thinking this sounds like something I'd like to do, but I'm a bit intimidated by it, then there is a really good game by W.H. Arthur, who is on Itch as well, called May You Fish in Interesting Times. And it's really interesting. It's very, very straightforward. You play failed revolutionaries getting together after your revolution failed years and years later to go on a fishing trip together and have lunch. And over the course of this fishing trip, you catch fish, and bit by bit you discuss things that happened during the revolution, things that went wrong, things that still affect you later on in life. And then at the end of it, you kind of have to make a decision about how your characters are going to continue. And it's all player, no GM. So it's just throw down a card and use the card to determine your prompt. Also, you're all birds. So you're anthropomorphic birds.
That is... I did not expect you to say that.
But the type of bird that you are dictates your role in the revolution, right? So if you're an osprey, you're one of the fighters and warriors, and you're going to have different prompts than if you were, say, a kingfisher or a cormorant or something like that.
I have to play this, Luke.
It's so, and honestly, the art is beautiful. W.H. Arthur is great. So yeah, May You Fish in Interesting Times is good fun. And then at the end of it, you might get some fish.
Okay.
I don't know if the fish is the important part of it. Probably not. But
what an amazing! Oh my gosh! That's a whole thing. We'll have to do a playthrough on the channel at some point.
That'd be amazing.
Okay, I think we've well and truly covered that. I mean, I could keep talking about it if I'm totally honest, but let's round it off for now. We definitely will come back to some TTRPG talk, but let's move on over to the Game Masters Mailbag. Hello, dear adventurer. This episode of the Mailbag is a Oops, All Ben's edition, where I inadvertently repeat a mailbag from a previous episode. So, Ben D, you are featured twice. We talk about different games, and I have apparently completely removed that a few weeks earlier than this, I'd already just spoken about you. But I just love you that much, and I just want to recommend all the games to you. So, listener, please imagine that this is a different Ben with the exact same answers as before. But me and my guest, it was a great discussion, and Ben, you're just going to have to buy more games. So, okay, back to it. Thanks. So, this week's mailbag, I still haven't got any props for the mailbag. I feel like I should have like a scroll or something.
That sounds good.
Maybe I'll once that Patreon money starts coming in.
Oh yeah, when that flows in.
Yeah, I don't have a Patreon, but anyway. So this week, I got a pretty cool one here. So this is Ben D, has written in, and so I'll run through the questions of what sums him up. So his vibe, he says, a music lover. The last board game that he enjoyed playing was Slay the Spire. So that's cool because that's an amazing computer game that is like a computer card game, digital card game. And then it was made into a board game. I think I've actually chatted about it on this podcast before, but that's an amazing game. If he was in the Crystal Maze, he would pick skill as a challenge. And he loves logic puzzles. And he said that he loves classic show reruns, aka The Office and Friends. So that's some comfort food. You know? I like that. I said, choose your IP. And he said, Lord of the Rings. Favorite video games? Oh, Final Fantasy VII, obviously, he says, of all time. And this week it's Dead Cell, which is a very cool game. That's like a roguelite, isn't it?
Yeah.
In terms of his feelings on betraying his friends or being betrayed within a board game, it's 10 out of 10. So he's well up for it. He's on board for betrayal. And finally, any other info that I said might deem useful, that he deems useful to find his perfect game. He said game complexity is a point for him, and whether or not it has miniatures is a factor. I don't know whether or not that means he likes games with miniatures or he hates them. So
fair enough.
If it has miniatures, I don't want anything to do with it. I've got a plastic allergy.
Yeah, for sure.
So I know Ben, as of course we're near the beginning, so I know Ben very well. Sure. I've played lots of games with him, so I'm kind of cheating, but I know that you don't know Ben, so yours is the purest.
As far as I'm aware, no.
I'll start with mine. So my reasons that this would be the perfect game for Ben are that it is an IP match. It's got combo kind of vibes like Slay the Spire, like combos between you and your party kind of thing. And it's got like that team composition like Final Fantasy. The only thing it's missing is betrayal, I suppose. But yes, it is Fate of the Fellowship. It's in the Pandemic system. So the guys who made Pandemic meets Lord of the Rings. And it is honestly so fun. You as one player play as two different members of the Fellowship. And you are literally playing through the events of all three films. And you've got to get all the way across the lands of Lord of the Rings, which I can't remember the name of.
Middle-earth.
Yes, Middle-earth. I was paying attention.
Probably the most famous fantasy setting of all time. It's course fine.
I'm going to leave it in. Because sometimes we forget things that we know intimately. Yes, you're moving across Middle-earth, the thing I remembered first time. And you've got Sauron's looking down on you. There's all these really lovely thematic parts of it where if you move as Frodo, which obviously you've got to get across with the ring, every time you move, if you don't use these like stealth cards that you're getting, which you need your friends to be giving you, basically. That's the sort of combo part of it, is get the stealth over to Frodo, because if you move without a stealth, the Nazgul and the Eye of Sauron looks upon you. And so you'll even get it where you might be on the other side as Legolas and Gimli killing some orcs, and you might do that purposely to draw the ire and the attention of Sauron's eye, so that when Frodo moves, he doesn't immediately get found. And really fun game. I think he would really like it. Does it have miniatures? No, but it does have small bits of wood that are quite fun. So I think that's...
Games Workshop produce a massive range of miniatures. You can buy your own and just...
you could just plop them on down, couldn't you? Yeah. So how about you? Have you got a recommendation for Ben?
So I've got two. So the first one does have miniatures. So it's Rising Sun, which is from Eric Lang. It's a CMON game. Eric Lang is most famous for Blood Rage, probably, and a couple of other ones. In Rising Sun, you play competing clans of Japan trying to take over and basically get points by taking territory and doing various different bits and pieces. The reason I think Ben might find it enjoyable is it's got a bit of that Japanese fantasy type stuff. There are monsters. There are a whole range of different monsters and beasties that you can encounter. It feels quite video gamey in a sense that there is sort of escalation as things go along, where you kind of unlock more interesting abilities the further the game goes. There's also a lot of potential for chaos and betrayal, which is all really good fun. There's central mechanics around a tea party that takes place at the start of each round, and you can choose to ally with different players and then screw them over later on in various different ways.
I didn't know it had that element to it.
Have you never
cool.
played Rising Sun, Andy? Oh my!
No, I've played Blood Rage, but I've never played Rising Sun. Yeah.
See, I've never played Blood Rage, but I do have Rising Sun and Ankh, which is the other two in the.
That's the other two. All right, you got me beat on Eric Lang games, but we'll have to do it. That sounds like a day to me. We'll do a day.
Yeah, it's amazing.
All three.
A very intense day that would be.
That would be an intense.
The other thing I think that's quite good about it that might appeal to Ben is that it is quite logic based. There's not a lot of randomness to it, so there's no dice rolling or anything like that. There is a little bit of randomness in that there is a choice of different actions you can do each turn, but you have quite a good selection of things. So I think that would be quite cool. And my kind of second suggestion, which is a bit off the wall, is a game called Camel Up, which is a camel racing game. Just because it's quite a bit like the Chocobo racing in Final Fantasy VII when you're trying to figure out whether or not.
That's where you... I was thinking that's where you were going with that.
If you just had like do 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 on the background, obviously music lover, so you get that. But also the thing about Camel Up, which I like, is that so many games, especially big Euro games, you can get really lost in the mathematics and the calculations of trying to figure out the probability of a certain thing appearing or a certain dice roll happening. But in Camel Up, because the way it works is that you bet on camels going around a race, but in a single leg, camels can move either 1, 2, or 3. And they can only move once in a leg. So what that means is that you're kind of doing these calculations in your head, but they're quite easy probability calculations because you think, it might go there, it might go there, it might go there. So that's a really good fun. So I've given Ben 2 different games depending on what mood he's in. If he is into something
look
daft,
at you, you've hit all the points.
That's it. Yes. That's it. If you had something daft and easy, then Camel Up. The thing I would say about Rising Sun, though, it's nowhere near as complicated as it looks when you get it out on the page. Like this isn't like a Twilight Imperium thing, right? This is you can finish it in 2.5 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I know Ben. I know that he really loves like Scythe is one of his favorite games. I know that it's on that kind of level, right? It's not more complex than Scythe, I'd say, Rising. Or it doesn't look it.
No, it's not. Definitely not. No.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, look at that. I think we've smashed that. And if I know Ben, he's already bought Camel Up right now. It's probably in his basket, and he's clicking buy.
It's got this little pyramid. It's got this little pyramid. You press down and make the dice roll. It's my favorite. One of my favorites.
You had him at Chocobo, I'm sure. Right, well, hey, Luke, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a really fun chat. I feel like I could just keep talking to you for ages about all this stuff. So we'll definitely have to book in another chat.
Great.
And if anyone's got any questions or any suggestions for what Luke and I could talk about, we're going to make like a little TTRPG corner that we should talk about.
Yeah, I like that.
But yes, okay. Well, thanks for joining us, fellow adventurers. And yes, I need to say, remember to, what do I need to say? Oh yeah, smash the bell, the like button, follow, maybe leave a glowing review. Not a bad review. I mean, I suppose, don't leave a bad review, please. Leave a glowing 5-star review. And if you don't like it, then please don't leave any review. But yes. Good luck. Have fun. See you later.
Bye.
Oh, bye. That was really fun, dude.